edition of our InvestNest webinar. Great to have your company and excellent to see so many people joining us as well. So that's really good signs for this one. Very much looking forward to this edition in our series. We've got two spectacular guests to share with you today. But just before we get into that, my name is James Preston. I'm a news anchor with Kalkine TV, and it's great to be here with you today, moderating what should be a very exciting presentation from both of our esteemed speakers. And of course, this one is all focusing on the mines of the future. This is our InvestNest 2 ASX stars building the mines of the future webinar. So really looking forward to it. And just before we do get into everything, I'll make sure that we are getting across the fact that, of course, this is not a solicitation to buy or sell. This is information for educational purposes only. We're not looking to offer you a particular stock that you must buy or sell, or holding in the stock of a company or any companies that do end up being discussed today. So just keep that in mind. This information is very much for informational purposes only. Now, of course, this is the 2 ASX stars building the mines of the future webinar. If you're not 100% familiar with how Kalkine's webinars do function, what we'll do is we'll have a brief introduction of both of our guests for today, which is, of course, Rob Kirtlan and also Don Smith, including the companies they are representing. And both of our gentlemen will have a 15-minute presentation with a PowerPoint show as well. And then after that, there'll be about 5 minutes where we'll do some Q&A. So whatever questions that arise during their presentation, you can note them down. There will be a little question and answer box on the bottom of your Zoom screen down towards the bottom right. So just click that, enter your question there, and then we'll be able to discuss that with both of our presenters for today. And of course, if there's anything we don't get to in the allotment of time, you can also send an email across, which will make sure gets answered after the fact. So don't think that your questions won't be answered. They certainly will. And the best way to do that is to just jot this one down as well, info@kalkinemedia.com. It's info@kalkinemedia.com. All right, well, let's get into it. There has been massive government-backed initiatives to bolster infrastructure, and the transitional wave to a cleaner future has in turn upped the demand anticipations of mineral resources. Now, through a modern approach to the minerals industry, several exploration and development companies are pursuing opportunities for trending commodities with burgeoning end-use applications. And part of that is two of our esteemed clients here at Kalkine Media, which are both ASX-listed exploration and development companies, namely, of course, Tempest Minerals and Renegade Exploration. And to get some further insight into both of these companies, of course, Don Smith, who is the CEO and, should I say, the chairman as well of Tempest Minerals, along with Robert Kirtlan, will be joining us today. Let's start by having a little bit of an introduction with Don. He is a seasoned geologist and an entrepreneur with more than 20 years of experience in the mining industry. He holds significant experience across exploration, development, operations, and as a consultant across different commodities, including precious base metals and also energy minerals. And Don's corporate experience includes project acquisition, financing, and development and company management. There's just about nothing he hasn't done within the space, which is why we've got him here today. And to talk us through a bit more about what Tempest is doing and how they can take full advantage of the current trends that are forming, I'd now like to throw it over to none other than Don Smith. Don, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, James and Kalkine, and Rob for joining us. Excited to be here and talk to you today. That's getting our presentation up, or am I doing that? Bit of background behind Tempest. We were listed in 2017 as a pure lithium explorer company, and we merged with a private exploration vehicle with some fantastic holdings in Western Australia here in 2020. And since then, we've been doing some solid exploration, which we'll be telling you more about in a moment. So next slide, please. So a quick corporate overview. We have a fantastic team. That's the first thing on the left-hand side there. You can see the bottom three people there, including myself, are seasoned mining professionals. We've all built multiple mines and explored all over the world. We've also got the high-profile chairman of Brian Moller, who many of you may know from Sol Gold fame and other companies here in Australia. In terms of the corporate side, we have a modest market cap of 42 million. We've had, as you can see on the graph down there, a recent interest from the market due to an exploration discovery we've made at our Malaya project. And we've got a fairly tight holding there at just under 500 million shares. And we just recently completed a cash raise of a little over $8 million, which we'll be using to progress all our projects in the near future. You go to the next slide, please. So this is an overview of our projects here in Western Australia. The projects on the left-hand side of the screen are our Yalgoo portfolio, which is our primary focus at the moment. All up, it's a little over 1,000 square kilometres of ground, so not insubstantial amount of tenure that we have. But we also have projects in our magnet and across the Western Australian state, which have some lithium and other commodity focus. Our focus is on the Yalgoo region. So for those of you that are not familiar with the region, it's about 4.5 hours north of Perth. So you can drive out of Perth onto the freeway and be up at site in a little under 5 hours. And one of the reasons that attracted us to this region was the exceptional infrastructure, which isn't common around Australia. We've got 2 highways, rail, water, power, telecoms, it's all there, as well as half a dozen world-class mines, including several multi-million ounce gold deposits, many billion tons of iron ore, and the big elephant in the room, which is the polymetallic BMS mine, Golden Grove, operated by 29 Metals. We started here quite a few years ago, and since then we've basically rewritten the geology for the entire region, and we now know that there's significantly more potential here than was previously recognised. If you look at the image there, you can see in the top we've got Yalgoo, the town, which has 2 small mines there in its own right. And then if we go down to the bottom of the screen, we've got Mount Gibson, and that's about 100 kilometres as the crow flies. And roughly speaking, we've got a mine every 10 kilometres and a world-class mine every 20 kilometres. And within our project portfolio, we've got many, many tens of kilometres which have not been explored previously, basically. And we think there's a fantastic opportunity to build yet another world-class mine to really help that sustainable theme that we are here to talk about today. Go to the next slide, please. So I guess the thing that a lot of people are here to listen to today about is as our Malaya project, where we recently did some drilling last month. And there we've made a discovery, which I'll talk about a bit more in a moment. But I guess the background behind this is that we have the Golden Grove and Ninja operation, the Golden Dragon operation in the top left there. And for several decades, it's been assumed that those rocks that host those mines go down the left-hand side of the screen on the western side of the map. And through some innovative work that we've done, we've realized that at least part of those rocks swings around to the middle of the screen where it says Malaya. And that was a big revelation. So we've essentially opened up a whole new province in a very well explored, very, very well endowed area. And if we go to the next slide, we can see how we came about that. So as I mentioned, we've got a very strong focus on technology and science, and this is how we did it. So we looked at the old maps, we realized they didn't match the data sets that we had. We went out and actually looked at the rocks and found that they matched what we thought were going to be there. And we came up with quite a few drilling targets. There are only some of them that are yellow spheres on the right-hand map there. And last month we drilled one of those, which is the Orion Target, which is on the next slide. And so these 2 holes were, of course, every geologist hopes every hole has something in it, but these holes were purely for stratigraphic reasons, to understand the geology of the region. So we go to the next slide, please. Yeah, and so within these 2 deep holes that we've drilled, one's 700 meters and one's 1,000 meters. So we could get a full cross section of this entire new province, geological province. And within those, we hit not just one, but multiple zones of mineralization. The first one was on the very first day of drilling. You can see we've got 8 meters of magnetite plus or minus chalcopyrite, and that was pretty exciting start. And then we kept drilling, and then we got more. And then we kept drilling and we got yet more. And then the second hole basically repeated those results. And I want to point out now that these are only visual estimates, but we are very excited about what we're seeing. Particularly, I want to point out that we have we have mentioned in our announcements, but I want to reiterate it, is that we have big, thick zones of disseminated sulfides. So disseminated means little blobs of exciting mineralization, and we have thick, extensive zones of this, and we're still trying to understand what that means geologically, but we'll have some more news coming out on that imminently. Yeah, so there's an excellent visual representation of what is in the two holes. So on the right-hand side, we've got a large piece of magnetite chalcopyrite, and in the bottom corner, we've got pyrrhotite chalcopyrite. On the top left there, we've got high-grade copper mineralization in bornite, and in the bottom left there, we've got some pretty exciting alteration. Not necessarily economic mineralization, but for a geologist who see those rocks, most people know what that means. So, yeah, and you can see on that cross section there that we've got mineralization all through, and we're finding more as we're logging it in detail every day. So we are going to be going in there and doing more work, more drilling, more geophysics, lots of work coming forward. So just before we finished this program, we had another program going at our Euro project, which is in the southern part of our holding. And this is a slightly more explored region of our holdings. However, as I mentioned, we're technology focused. We've got a lot of data, a lot of modeling, and we've recognized that there's actually a lot more going on here than previously. So we did a bunch of drilling here where you can see there's historic drilling. They've got 17 meters at 1 gram, 15 meters at 2 grams. Perfectly exciting results at the time, except that gold was worth $200 an ounce, whereas it's worth $2,000 an ounce right now. And so if we go to the next slide, we can see where we've done our drilling, and we've identified that there's a mineralized corridor of at least 1 kilometer, possibly up to 2 kilometers long. And we're looking forward to getting back in there and doing more drilling in this area. We are currently waiting on results that we're due any day from the drilling that we did here previously. So there's some news flow coming out on that. Into the next slide, please. So while we're only focusing on the northern part there, the Euro project itself is also quite large at several hundred square kilometers. And we've got the perhaps unfortunately named target of Kiev in the center of the screen there. And you can see that that has a very similar geophysical and symbol or representation as to the multi-million ounce Rothsay mine on the right-hand side there. So that's very early exploration. We've only done some soil sampling. We're waiting for the results on that as well, but I'm confident that we'll be generating a lot of drill targets there in the near future. I'll touch briefly on the project that started our journey here in this region, which is the Warrior West project. You can see we've got an enormous 15 by 3, minimum 15 by 3 kilometer alteration zone. And within that, we know there are high-grade pockets of gold. And we discovered that because there's been extensive prospector activity there in the past, which we observed and realized that there was something more than a barren granite happening here, which is again what many of the historic maps showed. Next slide, please. So similarly, I'll mention that we have a number of operations nearby our projects. Here we have the drill rig, which hit a meter or two at 5 grams. And we think that if we can prove up any even modest resource in a short period, we can be in production very quickly because there's no infrastructure build. We can be just digging and putting it into the mill, which you can see in the top of the picture there, only a few kilometers away. Next slide, please. The last area in the Yalgoo region is our Messenger project, which is right beside multiple mines. We've already discovered widespread gold in our exploration there, but we absolutely are convinced that there is very high probability of finding base metals here as well, given its proximity to the Golden Grove mine. We've got numerous targets ready to drill there, and we're looking forward to doing that now that we're fully funded. Next slide. So we also have a modest holding in the Mount Magnet region. So you can see the dark blue on the right-hand picture there. Mount Magnet is probably a bit more well known to many listeners. or viewers, in that it's one of the larger gold producing areas in Australia. And you've got several multi-billion-dollar companies in the area, Westgold, Ramelius, and one of the larger players coming up at the moment with Genesis Minerals, who has Raleigh Finlayson from Northern Star Saracen on at the head of that, which is pretty exciting. And in our holding there with the blue colour, we've got old mine workings that aren't on any of the government records, and the waste dumps from those shafts have gram gold material coming out of them in themselves. So we're looking forward to testing some of the targets we've generated there going forward in the next year. Next slide, please. As I mentioned earlier, we began our journey at Tempest as a lithium explorer, and we still have a wide exposure to lithium globally, including our greenfields exploration projects here in Western Australia. And this is one of them that we've just done some work on in the last couple of months, and we're again waiting on results from the sadly delayed laboratories in the state at the moment. So lots happening here, and you can see from our Gantt chart here that we have quite a lot of work coming up in the next 12 months, which means a lot of news flow and a lot of excitement for Tempest. We'll have multiple drilling programs, we'll have geophysics happening, as well as our ongoing field work, which we rarely aren't doing. And that's about it. Next slide. You can see our contact details for people to check us out online.
Brilliant, Don. Thank you so much. Really insightful presentation, and also thank you for your patience too. We're just scrolling through those slides. I know we're having a few issues today with the technical side of things, so appreciate that as well, mate. Now, we do have a few questions that have popped through as well, so let's get them from, let's start with Sam here, I think, Don. This could be a good one for you. What are the key takeaways from the recent concluded drilling program at the Orion Target?
Key takeaways is that we have multiple mineralization zones, including those that we believe are directly comparable to other projects in the region, which, as I mentioned, there's a number of large ones there. So we're pretty excited about that mineralization, and we're looking forward to seeing the results from the laboratory on that.
Now, John also has a question here, and he says, what differentiates... actually, no, we won't go that one just yet. We'll go for Dean first. What are the plans moving forward at Malaya and also Euro?
Sure. As I mentioned, we've got multiple drilling programs planned there. We'll have at least another diamond drilling program. We'll have an RC program, and we've got extensive geophysics planned, including downhole geophysics on the holes that we've drilled, as well as potentially, well, more than likely, airborne geophysics as well.
Yeah, wonderful. Now, we will go to this one for John here. What differentiates Tempest from other mineral explorers? I know it's a bit of a broad question, and there's probably a lot you could answer to this, but what do you think are the key things, Don?
No, excellent question. I like that one. The simple answer is that we're not a lifestyle company. We're very passionate. So there's close to 1,000 companies on the ASX, and it's a valid question to ask. We're passionate. We have a great technical team. We've got some world-class people on our team which lead us, and also our technology focus. And I know a lot of companies talk about that, but we actually live it. We have a paperless office. We have apps and software that we've written in-house that we use in the field, not just in the office. And I think that competitive advantage we have of the speed that we can collect data and then analyze it is certainly something that sets us apart.
Now, those apps there, Don, is that a conscious choice from you guys to make sure that it is basically, I suppose, staying as internalized as possible, that every process that you're working through is from the ground up? Is that something you wanted to ensure that Tempest was doing, or did it just come about naturally?
Look, there are commercial, and we do use commercial offerings as well, but certainly a lot of it is so that we can adjust to our own workflows. Sadly, although the mining industry is closing in the gap, it is still far behind other industries when it comes to technology adoption.
Sandra's got a question here too, who says, lithium prices have substantially zoomed in 2022. Does Tempest hold significant exposure to lithium projects?
Indeed. I mentioned earlier, we've got multiple greenfields exploration projects here in WA that we're progressing. In addition to that, we still have exposure to projects that we had previously, one in the US, which is under high-profile Argosy company. And also we've got some projects in Africa, which we're still exposed to there as well through a shareholding in an AIM-listed company.
And last one for you, Don, because you've been quite succinct with these as well. Michael Vaughan says the Malaya project is located on the strike length of Golden Grove in the unexplored Yalgoo Greenstone Belt. How does Tempest plan to tap the opportunity at that project?
That's a good question as well. To start off with, as I mentioned, this area is completely unexplored. So there's never actually been a lease on this project, let alone drilling or anything like that. So the data that we have is all data that we've acquired, or it's broad-based state data sets. So we're going to be doing a lot of close-spaced mapping, drilling. The geophysics is potentially a key as well, now that we know the mineralogy of the things we found is conducive to using things like EM. So that's the geophysics is going to be one. The on-ground hard work is the other one. Yeah.
Well, Don, just before we move along to Rob here, this is a question I always like to ask myself. Obviously, I mean, we've got the benefit of having you here, the CEO of the company, so obviously there's no one better to ask. What do you see for the next year, and then obviously for the next 5 years? Some of these leases that you've got on the projects are obviously ongoing. So where do you see Tempest moving forward in the future?
Well, certainly the big goal is to prove up more of what we've discovered already in the near future. So, and most exploration companies, the goal is to make a big discovery and build it up to a point that either you start production yourself, or a bigger party comes and takes that over. And certainly that's our goal in the next 5 years, is to do either of those. And we are certainly don't have any dogma when it comes to that. But we are capable of building a new mine, and that's, I believe, one of the reasons you have us on the panel today. So,
absolutely.
In the next year, we're going to be doing a lot of exploration, and yeah, we'd like that to yield more results. In terms of what the world looks like, another panelist on an interview I was on earlier this morning mentioned that the economy looks potentially a little bit rocky going forward. It is the nature of the beast. We go up and down, and Tempest is fully funded, so we can ride that out in the near future anyway.
Well, look, obviously there's a lot of discussion about inflation at the moment. We've got geopolitical uncertainty between Chinese expansion towards the Solomon Islands, also aggression against Taiwan, and then obviously the big one is the Russia-Ukraine conflict. So, I mean, you talk there a bit about a disrupted economy moving forward. Are you in a good position where it doesn't really matter what is going to unfold potentially in the next 5 years, that you'll be able to capitalize as much as humanly possible?
Well, certainly, I think if companies can't survive when times are down, then they probably shouldn't be in the game in the first place to run. But yeah, I mean, our capital raising recently means that we can operate for quite some time without having to worry about that.
No, terrific. Don, thank you so much for answering those questions and also for the presentation. And there's a very good reason why you are both the CEO and the Managing Director there at Tempest. You've got all the answers for us now. I'll get you hanging around for a little bit as well, because we will, of course, still have Rob's presentation coming now, and then we'll have a final bit of a thought from yourself and Rob just to leave our investors with today. But thank you so much, Don.
Pleasure.
All right, well, let's now shift across to our second presenter for this webinar. Of course, we are looking at the mines of the future, so it is very important to take a look at what the plans are for both of these companies moving forward over the next couple of years. And the best way to do that now for Renegade Exploration is, of course, to have a chat with none other than Robert Kirtlan, who is the chairman of the company. Now, Rob has extensive experience in the mining industry, and that spans more than 25 years. He's been involved in arranging finance for junior and major mining companies through both debt and equity. Now, he's worked across both Sydney and New York as an investment banker, so it certainly comes with the pedigree of understanding how finances operate at just about every level you can possibly conceive. And he's also been instrumental in financing, management, and development of exploration opportunities across a broad spectrum of commodities in a number of different countries. And as for the company itself, Renegade Exploration, it is, of course, an Aussie-based mineral exploring company with significant exposure to copper, gold, and base metal projects. But to talk more about the company itself, there is, of course, a person of great caliber here who knows far more about Renegade than I do, and that is none other than the chairman, Robert Kirtlan. Rob, thanks for joining us today.
Hi, James. How are you?
Very good, mate. It's terrific to have both yourself and Don here.
Yes, and hello to Don. And good luck in Yelgu. It's an area I've been watching for years, and I think what you're doing up there is fabulous, by the way.
No, terrific, Rob. It's a pleasure to have both you and Don here. So let's get stuck into it now. If we can get you to share your presentation on the screen. Beautiful. All right, Rob, the virtual floor is yours, mate. Take it away.
Thank you very much. Hopefully the internet will hold up because we've been having major problems. Welcome to everyone who may be watching now or in the future, and thank you for the opportunity at Kalkine, and thank you for your time. Renegade is a company which has had a number of starts in life, like most others, but most recently we've pivoted to remaining in Australia, and in particular, after the recent sale of our Yandal assets, we have focused on Queensland, and in particular the northwest area. We're up around Isa, and we have a great belief in copper and the future for that metal. As a little disclaimer, I'll move straight into why we're looking at it. I think most viewers will be reasonably familiar with copper and how it operates, but the EV revolution really has taken me by surprise, quite frankly. I'm always a lover of copper, but the forecast numbers and the deficits that appear to be going on substantially for at least the next, let's say, 10 years, really give us a lot of confidence in being in this sector. And we don't need to find world-class deposits to make a lot of money out of potential mining opportunities. And I'll speak a little bit to that as we move along. Of course, we're looking at the basic fundamentals of copper, and you can see down there where you can see the copper price. You can see the spread between the LME warehouse stocks and the price. Copper's holding up quite nicely, even in these turbulent times. There are forecasts out there from Goldman's and others of $15,000 a tonne, and of course there's all of these other little things going on out there. And putting aside Europe, what's going on in Chile with the new government coming in. I'm reasonably connected into there. I've worked there for some time, so they don't even know. My old buddies over there don't even know what's going to happen. So they have a major influence on the copper price. So any sort of more supply disruption shocks rippling through the system are all good news for those of us in the copper sector. So there's our story. We came into a joint venture with Glencore, Queensland Mines. I'll probably switch between the two. You can see it's called the Carpenteria joint venture, and we surround Cloncurry. We've got some very interesting smallish oxide deposits there and some potential for more. The interesting thing about this joint venture is that Glencore wants to drill some holes this year. So we chatted about that a couple of months ago, and we kind of gave them a big hug and said, let's go and do it. So we're in that sweet spot, I believe, in northwest Queensland, where we do have the opportunity to actually find nice sized oxide deposits, perfect for smaller companies to get their teeth into and make money. At North Isa, it's a deal that we only put together in December. We've worked very quickly on that, and you can see here where we've established a base in Isa. I've got two geologists up there working. I'm currently there, and in the background, that's part of our ground. That is Lady Agnes behind me, although I'm not sitting out there, by the way. Because of our management of our portfolio, we do have funds which we believe we can release over the coming months or whenever we need it to continue financing. So potentially not running to market for money and creating dilution for shareholders, which is important to us. So the current focus for us is North Isa. We're a reasonably straightforward and simple story. We don't have bucket loads of ground. North Isa came along. We're going to spend $500,000. We're already up over 100K. We're going to at any point trigger our option and move into the formal joint venture with those guys. It's ground which has had a reasonable amount of work on it. Typical story. I think the Tulloch prospect was what caught my attention early, and that was because the ground there had actually never been in the hands of one group. Our joint venture partner was able to cobble that together, so he's been operating that area for 20, 25 years. So he sort of watches these things closely. He put it together. We like the look of it, but what happened as we were getting moving on it was Glencore, who held the mining lease at Lady Agnes, kindly provided us with information which at the time was public, and that gave us some impetus to focus firstly on Lady Agnes, because we immediately saw it as a bit of a walk-up drill target. And what we see there is we believe that there's potential for shallow oxide ores, and there's an IP target there, which I'll just go straight into. I'm going to flip down. There it is there. It's a bit of a funny looking shot, but they drilled a hole back in 82 at MIM, which fundamentally is 300 metres where they intercepted the mineralisation. They were interested in finding 50 million plus ore bodies. That's why they did it. They also drilled some other ones, which one was 1,300 metres. They didn't test anything near surface. That's what we'll do. So you can see at the top of this thing here, this is our oxide zone. We think the weathering profile goes down to about 100 odd metres there. So there's potential for some deeper, some reasonably deep oxides. And then we run into the sulfides, which we expect to see at around the 120, maybe 150 metre mark. And if there's anything half decent grade wise in that, then we've got a real potential here to pull this out of the ground. So we coming back to it, you can see that there's a strike length here. We've been semi-trenching there, looking to check out how long that strike zone is and how much we can see of it. Unfortunately, there's a lot of cover up there on top of the hill, which is just behind my head there, and that has made it difficult in some parts to get deep enough. But we've still been able to get into some of that oxide material, and you can see the grades are pretty attractive. They also carry a gold credit. It appears there's some sort of correlation at the moment between higher grades and decent grades of gold. So in any situation where we're looking at mining and processing, that's always a bonus. We've got our access agreements finalised. We're getting site works underway, and we are talking to our favourite drill contractor about a slot that we've had in place for some time. It's quite imminent. It's somewhere in May. There have been some issues. I just would caution through the area with rain. Hasn't substantially affected us, but it's certainly affected a lot of the other guys. Where the teams on Anzac Day, basically Sunday and Monday this week, were leaving site because they couldn't work. So the town is filled up with a lot of those guys from those areas. So that may push us back a bit. We hope not. But we're confident that we will have a rig there ASAP, because we are ready. So just finishing on Lady Agnes there, coming back to that nice little diagram. We remain reasonably confident that we will see oxides there. Sulfides, we are positive and hopeful. There's definitely a big working system down there with 180 odd metres at 0.2% at depth. So we'll see what's come up to the surface. But we've run some metrics around what we might see out of Agnes, and we think they look okay, and it's potentially mineable. There's a couple of options to treat that ore, the oxide ore. Either there's a plant not too far from us who I believe will be looking for ore. We could possibly treat it ourselves on site, which of course we have to go through, significant permitting hurdles there. So ideally, we would like to cart this to another site which is already operating. When it comes to the sulfides, I'm strongly of the view that these will end up going down the road to the Mount Isa mill, which is only 30 odd k's away. Our house base office is on Barclay Highway. It's across the road from the Glencore workshops. And we have trucks, the 4-trailer trucks trundling by every day, pretty much carting ore from satellite ore bodies in the area down to the mill. They are hungry for ore, and we're hoping we can help them out with that. So talking about the Carpenteria joint venture and our friends at Glencore, we like the footprint. We got involved in here. We own 23%. We're a funding party. We picked that up from Sovereign. It's got some good history. It's also got some reasonably interesting, smaller, shallow oxide deposits, which don't interest our partner. We're talking to them about that. We've been talking for some time, and you would have heard me say this before. I think the good news is that they're committing to a drill program down at Duchess, so just down this area here. So everybody's probably aware of Carnaby and what they've been up to down there at Lady Fanny. So we look forward to that, and those programs, those drill holes are being planned now. There's been a sniff of copper through this big IP anomaly and system that they have down there. So these effectively are new targets generated from that information. So we look forward to drilling that with those guys soon. Just touching quickly, we call ourselves opportunistic when it comes to portfolio management, aka if we get really good offers for ground and we don't think we can add much value, then we sell it. The most recent one of those is to Kirtlan. We sold the Antle project. We've got shares in them currently worth about $3 million. We also got 800K in cash, and we hold a small royalty, 0.5% royalty over the ground as well. So we will do that to keep financing the company, and if it makes sense, then we will sell it. It doesn't mean that we're an aggressive seller, a bit like Don. We're very capable, very able to take, for example, a Lady Agnes. If something proves up there, then we will take that through to production almost certainly. And that's the reason we brought Mark Connolly on the board. Mark's an operations guy. Fundamentally, he loves exploration. So in case he watches this, he loves exploration, don't you, Mark? But he's very, very good at production. So he's come on board. He comes with a background out of Newmont, Papillon, Azuma, those latter companies he ran, and they did particularly well. So he will add a lot to us if and when we get involved in production. So the quick snapshot on our corporate information: we're about a 10 mil market cap. We've got just under $1 million in the bank. We've got this treasury, we call it, so $3 million worth of shares. We've got another payment coming for a property that we have sold in the Yukon next year. So we're hoping to stay away from the market. That's our aim. And just in summary, we've had that major refocus to copper projects in Mount Isa. We're underway there. North Isa, we think is proving up to be a little bit more than we expected. Quite frankly, we thought we'd be working up Tulloch, but in actual fact, Lady Agnes has kind of landed in our lap, and touch wood, a little bit of luck, maybe it really does come good for us. And we're looking at some other opportunities there as well. We're picking through some other plays which we think will fit within what we're trying to do. And of course, our intention is to try and be as non-dilutive to shareholders as we go ahead. Thank you for your attention, and I look forward to some questions.
Well, Rob, thank you very much for presenting. That's the better one that we need to thank you for, indeed, mate. It's incredible how much is actually going on, both with yourself and also with Don. It's just, there's so many different projects to get into, and so many of them that have so much potential as well. So, I mean, you must be quite excited with what's unfolding really in real time.
Yes, and I guess the thing I haven't talked about, I mean, Lady Agnes really is proving to be a little bit more than we expected. We've been, apart from the work that we've been doing around that particular play, the guys I've got up there, we've been doing a lot of field work. And I've got walkers. So the guys are on the ground. I'm out there with them. So, we are out mapping structures. We've got our XRF and we're doing rock chips all over the shop, and we keep finding new zones. So, for example, there's a new area of interest east of Agnes. Now, nobody's been over there, but we've been over there and we've kind of gone, oh, hold on, we've actually got a little bit more over here. We've got a bit up to the north where we keep getting these. It's quite complicated geology, which is good news. So we keep getting these, shows of copper, zinc. It's a good working system. We really are in the right neck of the woods. When it comes to Tulloch, we're starting to get a little bit hot and bothered by that. It's very early days. I mean, we've brought a lot of information together. Then we've gone out, we've started ground truthing it, plus expanding it, and seeing what's in that area. And it looks to be looks to have zinc. It looks like it's got potential for cobalt and vanadium. So, all things which get us pretty interested. And, at some point we'll have a release around that. But, as I said, it's early days. We'd like to do some geophysics up there. Maybe we run some gravity. We certainly discussed that the other day where we're talking about running some programs, but they will be in front of us. And but in the interim, we'll focus on Agnes, because if she does give us any joy, which we hope she does, we'll be in the game.
Yeah, look, I mean, that's obviously the one that's probably giving you the most, I suppose, optimism moving forward at the moment. And it's interesting how you mentioned as well, you got people out there on the ground checking these places, checking the different sites. How are you finding the extraction process? Because, I mean, typically when we do see that groundwork come through, it tends to be a lot simpler to actually get it out than, when you bring in these enormous drill rigs, because we're finding it in places that are ultimately more accessible, hence the fact that you're able to actually get people on the ground there.
It's not an issue. Time's an issue. Of course, everyone's really busy. So, we book slots, and you lose your slots. Just like the drill rigs, you lose a slot, you're not quite sure when it's going to come back. But look, we've been. I've worked in the area before, so I know some guys up there, and it's all about it's about leverage off your old contacts, right? So we are in and out of all the contractors' offices there almost every couple of days, even just popping in. So my guys today have been at ALS, the earth moving guy, and also DDH, the drillers. So they're just in. They pop in for coffee. They have a chat, show their face. We're on the ground. We're not operating remotely. There's I do see some of the other guys there don't seem to have. They're operating through contractors principally. That's not the route we're taking. We've kind of, we've got our house, we've got our lease, we're on the ground. We're calling ourselves Queenslanders, and we're all supporting the Cowboys, of course.
Jeez, I don't know if I can support that at all, though, mate. Toddy Payton might be doing some good stuff this year, but I've got to stick with my Tigers. But let's hop into a few questions here now for you, Rob. We'll start with Sandra, who's been very involved today, actually. Sandra says, last year was a good one for Renegade in terms of the acquisition of interest in high potential projects. Is there any project in the acquisition pipeline this year?
Right now, we're still beavering away talking to Glencore about releasing some value within that joint venture. And we're looking at one other potential project to add to the portfolio in that region.
Terrific. Let's move on to Chris now, who asked, now that Renegade has set its foot on the ground at the North Isa project, what are your expectations for the project in the coming months?
Drilling. So, if Agnes gives us joy, then the next thing we'll be doing is looking to secure a rig to do further drilling there. So we'll see how that goes. I mean, our expectation is to have something. We know there's oxides there. but we just don't know what the width is. We really don't know what the depth is. But, historically, as I said, potentially the weathering's down to about 100 metres. So there could be some reasonable tonnes there. We don't need a lot of tonnes to make money out of it, as I mentioned. Ongoing work programs up at Tulloch, as I've alluded to, we're seeing some super interesting stuff up there. I think even for guys or people that don't know geology, I mean, I'm not a geologist, but, breathed it for the last 30, 40 years. But, I look at the ground up there, it's pretty amazing. It's a really amazing location. I was stunned by one area that we stumbled into, and there's been no sampling occurred there. So, we're going across a region which was, fundamentally about 400-500 metres wide of all of these outcropping Gossamer structures. And it's about 1 kilometre long. And no, there's nothing in the database. We just kind of go, what happened here? They forgot this one. But I think it's also to do, when you look at maps, it's to do with that disjointed ownership thing. It sort of straddled the border. So it's interesting what's happened in that area. And it's always, for the geologists, when they get these horsehead structures, hence the name Tulloch, an old Melbourne Cup winner, it's, they get a bit hot and bothered. They really do. Their eyes light up. That's what they'll do.
I like it. And I can imagine exactly why that would be the case. Really good point here as well, raised from Oliver 1986. That's his username. Renegade recently divested two of its assets in recent years. Was this move to focus 100% of your resources on copper projects, or was it due to some other compelling factors?
I think when you talk about the Yandal, if we talk about the Yandal project, so Yukon's very difficult and has been, from day one, quite frankly. But Yandal had incredible cover. So and we attempted to buy Strickland, if anyone's following it. They're now drilling down at the Millrose deposit. We attempted to buy that right in the middle of COVID, right at the start. We made what I thought was a very fair offer to the owner. They chose not to do that, sat tight, and ended up getting double what we offered from Strickland. So, Strickland, that would have been the core for us, raising more money and working hard. But it was difficult going. I mean, a lot of work we've done there was gravity, and we kept bringing the centres in on the gravity and stuff to try and understand the structures better and generate targets. And we got the property to that point. And when the Strickland guys came along, who we kind of know, and we had another offer building on the table as well, we were keen to get into bed with them because they've got a very strong geological background through that area. They're led by guys that have made some pretty major discoveries. So, we just looked at that and went, you know what, they can do a better job than us. And if we've got the leverage through the shares, great. So,
no, smart.
That was the logic. Yeah.
Now, Paul's given us quite a nice big question here. So, Paul Bennett, thank you very much for dropping this one. It's gone into the chat box, so I'm glad I've had a look at that one too. He says, given the IP near Duchess is allegedly the largest on all the JV permits and has been known since the 80s, what explains Glencore being unable to find the source? Also, can you explain the significance of the horsehead structure at Tulloch, which I know you have gone into just a little bit there, given Mount Isa was originally a horsehead type? Thanks.
So, look, we're talking about MIM here, and of course then Xstrata, now Glencore. I'm not in charge of their departments, but what I would say to Paul was they're always looking for 100 million tonne deposits, although it appears they're now selling them. I'm encouraged by the fact, because we had a good look at that stuff down at Duchess and really thought that, hey, it needs a bit more of a workover, and we were keen to do that. And then when they said in February at our last JV meeting that they were planning that, we were really happy that they're doing that, because it's a big target. It's got nothing to do with Carnaby, of course, because whatever Carnaby's doing down there I hate to say it, but it's going to be too, potentially anyway, possibly too small for, Queensland Metals, Glencore to be totally interested in. So, how they behaved in the past, well, back in my old IB days, I used to deal with Mount Isa mines, and, they had their ways and their systems, and that's possibly not the way they're behaving now. They're behaving like Glencore, so that's quite interesting seeing the transition in the company. With respect to the horse's head, there's some correlation to ISA itself, although ISA is in this quite unique folded structure. Now we've got the folds up there, then they aren't at surface as big, and I know from talking to the older Glencore / Mount Isa geos who we're reasonably friendly with, they really do have a bit of interest in what we're up to in that region, because we don't see any holes from them up there. Sumitomo drilled some holes on the eastern flank, for want of another word, looking for zinc, and got some shows, but we're probably not really near the structures that we're looking at there. So Paul, it's a really interesting play. As I said, I've never seen a structure like the one that we were climbing all over the other week, and seeing the numbers and the size. What it translates to at depth, who knows? But we're going to have to probably run some. We're talking about doing, as I said, maybe we're going to do some gravity up there. Gravity works really well. A lot of the IP gets mucked up a bit with the graphite and shales that are through the area, but they're all important. They're all important. Agnes, when you talk about shales, copper. A lot of the copper's in the shales. And those that study Mount Isa, of course. If you can get the Urquhart shales, well, you're a player, and we think we might have seen some. So, yeah, it's pretty positive.
Definitely be keeping the fingers crossed that it's not a case of an iceberg situation there, because you mentioned it's kilometre long, quite wide, but as you mentioned, you don't exactly know how deep it goes. But I'll tell you what, if it is a nice big deep one for you, then that could be obviously brilliant for Renegade, that's for sure. We've got two more questions here, Rob, as well. We've got one from Shelley, one from Nick. So we'll start with Shelley here. Renegade has been strengthening its copper portfolio. What is the company's outlook for copper and other commodities more broadly?
I'm always a partial copper bull, because it's such a great metal, sort of, along with iron ore, pretty much fundamental. It's the fundamental backbone of our civilization, in my view. So, and with the whole EV thing, we started looking at this a number of years ago, at Renegade, and kind of say, how do we get involved in this? It's difficult to pick up advanced projects. So, we figure here that with the Carpenteria joint venture, and also that currently with North Isa, that we've got these nice advanced projects to give us big leverage to copper. And, look, investment banks are often wrong, and the commodity analysts are often wrong, but they keep trying to talk copper down, and it's been reasonably stable. It hasn't taken off. It actually has underperformed a little bit in the recent markets. But, at $10,000 copper, that's $13,000, $14,000 Aussie. I mean, as long as the Aussie dollar behaves, which it looks like it will, we are super positive about our prospects at current prices, let alone the $15,000 that the Goldman commodity analyst talks about. And in actual fact, he thinks it could go higher. So we don't bank on that when we're doing if we're doing back of the envelope sort of work around some of these things we look at. Then we'll plug in 8,000, 9,000, 10,000, multiply it by several different Aussie exchange rates, and see where they all drop out. But pretty much at those levels, we can make a lot of money from smallish deposits.
Yeah, terrific. And Rob, final question for you here from Nick. As per the company's recent update, the results of geochemical survey yielded promising results at Lady Agnes, and it's now planning a drilling campaign. Based on the review of the historical data and recent results, how do you see the prospects of the project? And I know you're certainly quite a big fan of Lady Agnes, so I think I know where this one will go.
Well, Lady Agnes has had many fans in her time, but not necessarily out where we are. So, so for those that know the history of these names, look, we are very positive, and I think it's been mentioned to me by people around me. They haven't actually seen me this positive because I'm by nature quite conservative. So yeah, I'm pretty upbeat about this, and we don't need a lot of Lady Agnes luck to maybe have a live one on our hands here. So yeah, we've got our fingers crossed. Isn't it? Nothing's ever in the bag. We don't quite know what's down there, but we're willing to have a crack. And as I said, our friends at Glencore gave us all that information, which was fabulous. And I think that, in the back of their head is they're kind of going, well, if these boys can come up with any sulfide material, then we know where it's all going to end up. It's going to end up in our mill, and they are hungry. I mean, they can't get enough ore up their shaft anymore. So they've got real problems, with that, a mill running at under capacity, and they're trying to figure out what they do with it. But they've been trying to figure that out for a number of years. But basically, as I said, it's a 30k run. There's a road in place. It hits the bitumen. I've been doing back of the envelopes on this around, how much we could transport every day in a 4-trailer configuration and turnaround times and the whole 9 yards. But, we could basically have one truck pretty much going 24 hours a day, just going round and round. So, yeah, it's reasonably compelling.
Yeah, a lot to work with. And look, I asked the same question to Don. I'll finish with this one for yourself, Rob. Obviously, we are looking at you guys being two of the big movers moving forward with becoming those strong mining companies for the future. We know you're already doing great things as it is, but let's look at that focus. 1 year, 5 years from now, obviously there's plenty of projects in the pipeline. We've obviously extensively mentioned Lady Agnes. How do you see things working out for Renegade?
Yeah, we're not a one-trick pony. So Lady Agnes would be fabulous if it comes off. The Tulloch work will be ongoing, but we'd be looking at drilling that this year. More in the shorter, medium term is our discussions with Glencore and accessing some of these smaller deposits within the joint venture. And we've got stuff on the table there, and we keep talking. But it's negotiating with big companies is a slow process, and we're trying to do something which works for them and will work for us and our shareholders as well. And we remain pretty positive that we can do that. And if it happens in the next few months, we'd be very happy, because there's 2 years of work in front of us there, just on those things that we see and know.
Terrific. Well, Rob, thank you so much for your time answering those questions, and also for the presentation. And look, hopefully the bullish attitude towards both copper and Lady Agnes is one that does indeed come to fruition. Thank you so much.
Thank you, James. I'll sign off from Mount Isa.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, just before you do though, Rob, we'll get your final thoughts on getting involved today, and I guess also what you want investors, potential and otherwise, to take away from what you've been talking about here.
Yeah, look, leverage to copper. If you believe in it like we do, then we're a good player to have in the area. We're in the right place. We're in one of the great places of the world to go out and find copper deposits, small, medium and large. Now we all live the dream for a large one, but our focus is, let's start looking at the smaller ones, and if we can make them come together for us, then my firm belief is that we can get this company in a position of being into cash flow, within 12 to 24 months. And that's because we're in this region. We've got infrastructure. We've got willing buyers for our material. We're within sight of the mills and the production facilities. So that's our game. We've thought about it, and that's our intention to take the company to that point. And I think we'll all do pretty well at it.
Brilliant. Well, Rob, thank you so much for that, mate. Look, best of luck. You are, of course, the chairman of Renegade Exploration, and I'm sure you'll have plenty of wonderful things to oversee over the next 12 months and into the future, that is for sure. Now, Don, if you're there, hoping you haven't popped off for us. I can't see at the moment. We got you there, Don? No, I think Don might have actually left, unfortunately. So we have had a few technical issues today. I know that he's been working on a few things as well. So look, Don, I know you're not here, but you'll probably watch this back. Thank you so much as well for being involved today. And Rob, once more, thank you so much for your time and also those final thoughts too.
Thank you. Cheers, James. And thanks to everyone. It's great to be here.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much, Rob. And of course, if you do have any questions for our lovely audience there, and potentially it wasn't answered by Rob or Don during their presentations or the Q&A session, don't fret. You can, of course, get that across by just heading to info@kalkinemedia.com. We'll make sure to pass that on. But for now, that is it. I hope you enjoyed it. 2 ASX stars building the minds of the future, and they do seem to be very, very enticing projects, many projects for both Tempest and Renegades. And I'm very much with Rob there. I'm bullish on copper myself, so hopefully we can see some good stuff moving forward. But that is it for this edition of our InvestNest webinar series. My name is James Preston. Thank you so much for your company. And of course, you can catch a bit of a repeat, some of the highlights of this session on our YouTube channel, Kalkine Media. So make sure to head across there and subscribe. But that's all for now. Have yourself a wonderful day and best of luck with your trading.